But remote work, what does it mean? So as we're finding now that some of the surveys are coming out, and we've commissioned our own client surveys, but this is from Leesman, who have one of the biggest client surveys in the world. There is definitively going to be a move to remote working. And now that may be a statement of the obvious, but this is confirmed that those hierarchies of management, the presenteeism culture, have been shattered overnight. This is now all about how do you bring a team together who will be working in numerous multiple locations around the world. And by and large, as Matt was going to say on the last slide, this has worked very well for a lot of companies. We've heard from our company, a lot of our financial services companies, who thought both from a regulatory point of view, but from a staff call center point of view, they couldn't run remote workers. It's not only worked, it's worked well. And the business has gone forward during this time in a way that they just previously never would have supposed. So that idea of a BCP process of having another center you might have to shift operations to has suddenly been undone. There are so many options out there in the market that you can now have the choice of remote locations or give your staff different options locally. But face-to-face collaboration remains an issue. So much as it's great that we can join each other this morning and have a call in these circumstances and have a chat to one another, there is nothing like face-to-face contact. I went back to the office for the first time for one day last week and met with two of my team for a socially distanced coffee. Just the sheer proximity of being near people was a revelation, having not done it for 2.5 months in a professional context. And we heard from the head of global real estate at GSK, one of the world's biggest companies. They've been sending staff into the workplace throughout lockdown because they've been avidly, obviously, chasing a vaccine. So 65% of GSK's workforce has been in the office during this period. But because so many of their management staff have been remote working, he says that the management meetings have taken on a new level of hierarchy and importance. So going forward, the idea of face-to-face contact will become really, really significant in the way that we relate to our workforce. And if a client calls you in to say, let's meet face-to-face, or if a manager calls you in to say, we need to have some face time, it will suddenly got the layers of significance, and we'll lose those kind of meetings for meeting's sake. What this means though, around workspace in the office, that when you do have a meeting and you do want to do it face-to-face, you're going to want to do it in an excellent environment, which really not only facilitates collaboration and being in that space, but makes it special. I mean, I asked James Booth to come in on this because we've seen this from a lot of clients too, but this is a fascinating quote from a major law firm who we work with. And their head of real estate was simply, in Asia Pac, they've been through lockdown, they're coming out the other side, but they've also got experience of bird flu and SARS, and they've seen how pandemics can shift perception of space. But immediately they came out saying, well, look, our team have been home working. We just don't really need the CFO. The CFOs are already saying to us now, we don't need the space. The real estate team are now going to have to act, right, James? And this is something we've heard from a lot of Asia Pac clients.
Yeah, and I think it's for a CFO, it's the transition from property being a cost center to actually being a really integral part of how you run your business. Yes, from a CFO perspective, clearly we've had the ability of everyone working from home in our business. So you instantly jump to the conclusion that you could save a lot of costs by reducing your property portfolio. But actually, that is going to be integral to how you motivate your employees, the culture. And therefore, although the property portfolio will potentially shrink for most companies, what that portfolio is used for is going to change, and actually the value of that portfolio in an organization is going to be increased, and that's quite a big shift, and that will change from a CFO perspective from essentially being cost management into having to be closely integrated with HR and CEO agendas around strategy and culture.
Exactly that. And I think that's why Instance are in a relatively privileged position, because we're a global organization, but of a certain scale. We're working very closely globally with our clients. So we're hearing a lot from Asia how the new looks. So our Australian business are back in their office in Sydney and Melbourne. They're having conversations with clients. The likes of EY in Australia are really aggressively back in the office. They're taking flex space, i.e. serviced offices or co-working in big locations across Asia Pac to get staff client facing immediately, but to do so on their terms. They're not going straight back into the big HQ. They're taking segments of flex space so that staff can become client facing as quickly and as safely as practicable, but to do so on their terms, which is really interesting.